subject is a little different, but it's similar to that. And so today, and also you have all the sermon notes today and everything will be out there. And so today it'll be about the story of a blind man. It'll be seeing before sight. Seeing before our sight. So let's go ahead and look at the text and let's go ahead and get going this morning. Starting in Luke chapter 18. Now there's also a parallel version in Mark chapter 10. And then also in Matthew, there's a parallel version to the story. And so let's just start. We'll use Luke's version starting at verse 35. As Jesus approached Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the roadside and he was begging. When he heard the crowd going by, he asked what was happening. They told him Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. He called out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Those who led the way rebuked him and told him to be quiet. But he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And actually this word here, shout, means he's screaming, he's squalling, he is not backing down. He is getting louder and louder. Jesus stopped and ordered the man to be brought to him. When he came near, Jesus asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" "Lord, I want to see," he replied. Jesus said to him, "Receive your sight, your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus, praising God. When all the people saw it, they also praised God. So today, I want to share with you the advice of a blind man who could see more clearly than anyone else there. So here we have Jesus. He's on his way to Jerusalem. And he was during the festival time, so he's going to go, and this is his last entry into Jerusalem. And so he's coming through the town of Jericho. And so it's just a few more miles before they get to Jerusalem, but on the way it's this great pilgrimage. And so it was almost like a parade. These various pilgrims were going up to the Feast of Passover in Jerusalem. And so on their way, beside the road, it was a real, they did not have towns like, we have towns with huge sound. Like their town wouldn't be as big as, Sacramento or anything like that. It would definitely be a smaller community, some of these towns. And so as they're going through Jericho, there are people sitting on either side of the road as this procession is going by. And sitting there amongst the people is this blind man. Now it's interesting, in the parallel text in Mark says they're also, Mark calls the man by name and says his name is Bartimaeus. Matthew says there were two. In one account it says that they make the blind man coming into the city. Another one said that he was healed on the way out. So it seemed as if, and I'll tell you why perhaps this one man's name was mentioned, but it seemed as if that the procession or the interaction, it started when Jesus first got there, and then the healing and so on happened when they were leaving the city of Jericho. Now, it was interesting. Mark, for some reason, names this guy. His name was Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus. Now, in the Bible, you'll see a lot of times, you'll see like Simon Bar-Jonah, right? And what that really means, the bar is son of. So, in other words, Simon Peter is Simon, the son of Jonah. Okay? So, this man perhaps was Bartimaeus. So, we don't know his real name, but we know that he was the son of Timaeus. And perhaps Timaeus was someone who people recognized at the time. Because if people didn't recognize him, then why would they name him? And so here you have this blind man that doesn't even have a name, really. Not named here in this text. But he saw clearly who Jesus was. If you know the text, as they were, he was blind, but it didn't mean he couldn't see. He was blind, but it doesn't mean he couldn't hear. And so he heard all this commotion going by, and so he says, hey, what's happening? What's going on? And notice the response that he gives. They didn't say Jesus, son of David, was going by. They said Jesus of Nazareth was going by. And so hearing that it was Jesus of Nazareth, this blind man with this great need, what he did is he called out to Jesus. But he did not call him Jesus of Nazareth. He called him Jesus, son of David, the Messiah, the one that was to come. This blind man knew exactly who he was, and everyone else, though seeing, did not know who he was. And so you know the story. Jesus stops, calls him to him, heals him. He rejoices and celebrates and follows the parade. I want to show you 5 lessons, 5 things that we can understand and see and learn, some advice from this seeing blind man. So you got sermon notes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's just go ahead. Let's look at point number 1. So, first word of advice is this. We need to seek the more that Jesus always offers us. Seek the more that Jesus offers. Jesus comes to offer more about life, more about health, more about your experience. You remember some of the game shows that used to be on, and I'm trying to think of the name. I don't think it's Price is Right, but there was one that was perhaps more famous even before The Price is Right. And you would win a contest, and they would show you the prize, and then at the end they would then show you something much bigger. So this is what it initially started off as, but there was always something bigger to come. And so it was less big a deal. Thank you. Yeah. And so that's what Jesus is doing here. Jesus always comes to give us more. Amen. Always more. Look at our text. When he heard the crowd going by, he asked who it was, what was happening. They told him Jesus. That Jesus is passing by. So look at something. So, in this Jesus offering us more and seeking the more, what we have to do is be in a position where we allow or let Jesus to interrupt our common agenda. Now, think about this story. This man was there to beg, because that's the only option that he had, was begging. That was his only source of income and well-being. And actually, if you know Scripture, you'll see that when folks had these types of illnesses, they were seen as if they were cursed by God, not loved by God. And that's what they thought. And so here you have this man who his only means was to sit around the side of the road and beg. Now, we don't know how long he had been there. We don't know if he was born blind or if he had become blind during his life. We don't know any of that stuff. All we know is there is a man sitting on the side of the road that had a need. Another thing, if you can think about this, that there were other people sitting on the side of the road. Could it be possible that other people had a need? What do you think? You think it's possible? So that, but it's interesting that even with this crowd, that only one person received the more that Jesus had to offer. Sometimes on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights, I wonder how many people really receive the more. Is it just one? Because think about it, in that crowd there are many needs. Represented in this room are many needs, many situations, many things going on. And so his agenda was to get by for today. Okay? That was his agenda. And for many of you today, maybe your agenda is to get by for today. Just get enough to be encouraged. Just get enough to want to live on. Just get enough to mentally make it. Just get enough to make me feel better about myself. Jesus is offering more, but what he wants to do is we need to allow him to break up and to shatter our common agenda. See, if he came to beg, but Jesus came to heal. Maybe today you've come in a beggar's sense, but Jesus has come to heal and to motivate and to assist you. That's the more that Jesus wants to give. But then also, thank you, common agenda, I said that. Okay, thank you. Next is reconnect with the reviving energy of possibility. Think about this. Could it be possible that this man had been blind so long that he has relegated himself to begging and that's it? And that life was nothing else, nothing more than begging? Do you ever wonder when you are driving and you come to a freeway exit and there are people that are standing there begging? Do you ever wonder what their story is?
Yeah.
You ever wonder about that? Do you wonder, like, what has happened to this person that they're out here? Many times in our parking lot, we'll have people who are homeless and they'll come and they'll spend the night in the parking lot. And usually, we're pretty good, as long as they're not doing drugs or anything like that. We're pretty good with it. Say, hey, okay, this is temporary. Because we know that it's a place that they can come and they'll feel safe being in our parking lot. But many times when I'm here early in the morning, I get a chance to go over, and as I'm talking to them, introducing myself, I always ask them, if you don't mind, how did you get here? And sometimes they're able to immediately point to an event, seconds, and put them back in. And the other one is just going. So finally what happened is that the frog who was never taken out died. But the frog who had been taken out just for a second continued to live. See, it's energy and possibility. I wonder where you are today in that sense. Can you see anything beyond your situation or your circumstance right now?
Yes.
Can you see beyond it? Can you see that there is possible? Because there's energy in possibility. And unless you're thinking with possibility, then there is no energy. I wonder if he was thinking with possibility. I think he was. Because immediately when he heard Jesus, he said, that's not Jesus. That's the Son of David. That's just not Jesus down the street. That's the Messiah.
Hallelujah.
Look at your next, you have this on your notes. Where we are isn't where we have to stay. We are only done growing and expanding if we decide that we are. The blind man says, seek the more that Jesus has to offer. What other advice does he have for us? Number 2, we need to take advantage of the opportunities with God. Take advantage of your opportunity with God. Let's look at our text. He called out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus, Son of David. Here was his opportunity. Again, with possibility, he saw opportunity as something that he needed to act on. Notice your text. Look at your subpoint. Your first subpoint is this: aggressively embrace the timing. Now, sometimes we think that God comes and it's a bad time. It's never a bad time when he comes. Jesus coming at that particular time for this blind man was no accident.
Amen.
It was no accident. You coming, and see, you hear this too many times, and I think sometimes we ignore this. When you're at a service or something and you hear a preacher say, today's the right time. Today is your time. That's not by accident.
Amen.
Because again, I don't know you're going to be here.
Amen.
That's no accident. Today is one of those times where Jesus is floating by. Do you think Jesus came there by accident saying, I wonder what I'm going to do today? No, Jesus was coming for a blind man. Jesus is coming, has come for you and your situation. He has come for that. And so we need to then aggressively embrace this time. Don't let your minds wander off. Aggressively embrace this time, this message, this situation. Live in this moment, because this is the moment where the Lord has set aside so that he can speak directly to you. Amen. Next, reach for the change that you imagine. He didn't say Jesus of Nazareth. He said Jesus. He said, Son of David, the Messiah. Do you just see Jesus as Joe down the street? Or do you see him as the Messiah who has all power and who can do anything? Do you see him as the one who's just talking a lot of words, speaking a lot of words? Or do you see him the one who's come to rescue you? Do you see him as primarily a lawgiver, or do you see him as someone who has come in order that your life might be changed? Reach for the change that you imagine. You know what's so great about God? That he does and works above and beyond even what you imagine. He works beyond your imagination. You're in a situation now, it seems like you're in so much trouble, and Jesus is already walking in the place where he really wants you to be. Way above your trouble, way above your concerns, way out of the morass. He's already walking in that place. But can you imagine being out of where you are right now? Can you imagine that? And then after you imagine that, then you need to consider how much. Consider all that you can gain. Consider all that you can gain. Not lose. You probably thought it was lose there. Yeah. Consider all that you can gain. There's no one that ever walked with Jesus and did not get more. That was the first lesson that the blind man told us. Satan is to take advantage of your opportunity. I remember when I was in aerospace and defense, the first business trip I went on, I was working with these guys, and I didn't really understand who they were, or how critical they were to the company, or how important and all the influence they had. But they chose me to travel with them. So I worked on this project, and I mean, I went at it on this project, and I did everything I could to make sure that this project was and I worked hard the whole time I was there. I just worked, traveled to New Jersey, and I just worked. Little did I know that opportunity, that working like I did, and the strategies that I put in place were actually set the tone for me a job a year and a half later.
Praise God.
Are you squandering an opportunity that God has given you? The blind man didn't do that. The blind man could have said, well, I'm blind, and who's going to hear me? Who's going to, No, he didn't do that. You take advantage of the opportunity that God has given you. You are meeting with God right now. And he is offering you something different. Listen for him. Listen for him. But the advice he gives us, number 3, third word of advice is this. Don't be deterred by the thoughtless people that surround you or that are around you. Don't be deterred by thoughtless people who might accompany you on this journey. Let's look at our text. Those who led the way rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. We'll wait. This is a beautiful thing. Here you have this blind man that would not be quiet. Now, in our language, we say rebuked him. They probably told him, shut up, man, nobody cares, shut up. You know how they try to push someone aside? Isn't it amazing that in the crowd, there were other people with needs, but yet and still, he's going to get his need taken care of, and people are against him getting what he really needs? Isn't that something? How people, sometimes the people around you will actually hold you back, and that they won't encourage you? I'm thinking that perhaps in some of you, your situations, you got people around you that are holding you back. You got people that are in your way. And so this blind man had to get past all these obstacles that are put in their way. Sometimes the obstacles we have to face, unfortunately, are people. Amen? Amen. And so we have to learn how to get past obstacles, get past people, in order that we might receive everything that God has for us. So, let's look at our text. Let's look at our sub-points. Sometimes, folks, we are so easily dissuaded, so easily discouraged. You need to get past and get over unfortunate distractions. The people were distractions. He couldn't see their faces, which was a good thing. And so, the more they told him to shut up, the louder he got. Is that you? Or the more the distractions come, the more the obstacles come, the more you quit, the more you stop, the more you give up. Get over distractions. Distractions happen. And distractions happen actually to help us become stronger. There was a little boy who was walking on the side of the road, and he saw a cocoon and how a butterfly was just starting to break the cocoon to come out. And it was a very small hole. And the young boy was watching this. And it took a while, and the hole got a little bit bigger. But then after a while, he just saying, wow, this butterfly's never going to get out of here. And so what the kid did is the kid took his little pocket knife and he made a slit in the cocoon. And of course, the butterfly came out. But instead of flying out, the butterfly actually just flopped to the ground. And the butterfly had wings, but the butterfly couldn't fly. See, the kid did not know that through the process of pushing and shoving and tearing and struggling, that as he would emerge from the cocoon naturally, that the sides of the cocoon would push the fluids that needed to strengthen the wings in order for the butterfly to fly.
Amen. Yes.
There's some obstacles that you're going to have to go through. But don't give up, because it will make you stronger, develop you into what you need to be. Press forward and shake off things along the way. Shake off things along the way. The blind man had to shake off the voices of the people. Matter of fact, that's your next line. Shut down the noise. The Lord told Jeremiah, don't be afraid of their faces. Don't be afraid. I'm going to tell you to do some crazy things. Don't look at their faces. You do what I tell you to do. Is it possible that we get some people? The blind man found a way to get rid of the noise. He would not allow negativity to hack into his mind. Negativity becomes almost like a computer virus that once it gets into our mind, then corrupts our thought process. The battle is the mind. You can't go forward with stinking thinking. And so you need to make sure that your mind isn't being hacked by negativity. The blind man would not stop. The blind man would not quit. The blind man would not give up. he then gives us more advice. Number 4, notice the way, or notice how Jesus embraces interruptions. Notice how Jesus embraces interruptions. Let's look at our text. Now, Jesus is on a mission, okay? How many of y'all like interruptions? I thought so. Okay, yeah. Jesus stopped and ordered the man to be brought to him. When he came there, Jesus asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus is not perturbed or upset or bothered when you cry out to him for help. As a matter of fact, there is no such thing as interrupting heaven. Though human beings, we don't like to be interrupted, that's what Jesus exists to do for us. That's what God has made himself available to do. Notice, even in Matthew, as a part of the Christmas story, it said he came to seek and save that which was lost. He came, his name will be Emmanuel, God with us, for he will save his people from their sin. So he's come with the mindset and with the mission to rescue us. So if he's coming to rescue us, you cannot interrupt a rescuer. James then almost like puts a finger in our faces and says this. He says, "You have not because you don't ask." Sometimes I wish he didn't say that. Because then what that does is that puts it then back on me. The blind man wasn't having any of it. Let's look at that someplace. I want you to notice one thing, and I want you to hear, definitely, if you don't hear anything else, I want you to hear this. Notice the value that Jesus places on people. A blind man, a cursed man, a blind man. Jesus stopped. Stop. So can you imagine that as they're going in this procession, that Jesus stopped? The whole procession, that stopped. He stopped the whole caravan, a whole procession for one blind man. I want you to know today that he values you just like he values that blind man. That you are of that great value. Notice the value. Not only that, Jesus speaks directly to him and says, didn't say, "Hey, go see one of my boys, go over there in the corner, he'll take care of you, take numbers." Jesus didn't take numbers. Jesus said, "Now that you're here, and I heard what you said," this is key, "what do you want me to do?" Now, for some of us, that might seem like, duh, I want to see. Obviously, preacher, you can see it right there. But you know what? Sometimes, if we have to be honest with ourselves, the exact thing that we really need from the Lord is the thing that we do not ask for. It's like going to the doctor with your foot turned to the right and you telling the doctor that you got a headache. Isn't it amazing that we don't tell him exactly what we need? You have to understand that you are the mission and his focus. It's about us, folks. This is a story that uses a blind man to teach us about faith and about reaching out to a God that loves us very much. But the real moral of the story is that he's teaching us and telling us and saying that you are of great value. You are my mission. I've come for you. So therefore, since he's come for you, You need to answer this question for yourself. Now that you're here, now that you have an idea of who he is, the question to you is, what do you want him to do? What do you want him to do? That's a sobering question. What do you want Jesus to do? What do you want the Messiah to do? What do you want God Almighty to do? That's a question you need to answer for him today. And then number 5, last word of advice that he gives us. Number 5. Apply your faith and then make bold requests. Now think about here. Now the request, it was bold. The request was bold. I mean, like, no, Jesus, probably some of it would have been, Lord, just fill my cup. Or, Lord, give me a house. But no, he says, you know what? I want you to give me what I really need, and what I want you to give me something that no one else can do. I want to see if you are who you say you are. Therefore, in boldness, I want to see. Can you do that? I'm going to tell you folks today that there's no limitations on what he can do. Amen. The thing is, going back to point 4, will you answer that question today? What do you want him to do? So then you need to apply your faith so that you can make a bold request. Look at our text. He says, Lord, and again, look at his language. Lord, I want to see. Jesus said to him, receive your sight, your faith has healed you. Again, this isn't a story about a blind man. This is a story about us. So here's your first subpoint. Let him restore your life, your hope. Let him restore your hope and person. Let him restore hope. Sometimes in our circumstances, we allow our circumstances to become so great that it will kill our hope. Some of you sitting here today, you are pretty much down on your last ounce of hope. Let him restore your person. Think about this. He's saying, Jesus, if you would give me sight, I can take care of myself. I can get up from here. I'll never be here again. If you will give me sight, then I can do a lot of things. I can improve my life. If you would just do this for me, then I can serve you. If you would do this for me, it will totally change my life. Do you know that's exactly what Jesus wants to do? He wants to entirely change your life. Let him restore you. And then let him restart your life. Think about this blind man now being able to see. His life is totally different. Jesus wants to do and make a totally different change in your life. But I have to come back to that subpoint in point 4. Answer the question. What do you want him to do? Let me end with this scripture from 1 John. This is the boldness which we have toward him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he listens to us. Okay, that's good, but then he continues. And if we know that he listens to us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions which we have asked of him. You have not, because you ask not. The blind man had insight. Not natural sight, but he had insight. It was his faith in God that made him well. That gave him boldness. And that changed his outlook on life. Will you allow God to change your life? Answer the question. Let's pray.